All right, everybody. So I know it's late in the afternoon, and as we were talking about how we wanted to formulate the course of today, Jonathan and I were having this conversation, and he was talking about rethinking building green. And I said, you know, at 3:15 in the afternoon, I don't think anybody wants to hear anybody talk anymore. So let's have a workshop. Let's do a collaborative, innovation-based, inclusive discussion about how we rethink the built environment. And then I'm going to knock over chairs while I walk. I will also just point out really quickly, I don't know if some of y'all noticed the nuance here. There were 4-inch heels this morning. There's no 4-inch heels this afternoon. So go with me on it. Go with me, guys. All right. So again, good afternoon. I want to say at the top that I am so deeply appreciative for the opportunity to speak with such a dedicated group of professionals. I think in our day-to-day work, we all face obstacles. We're not always so privileged to be in a room full of like-minded thinkers, designers, and innovators. I mentioned earlier, I spent a decade in city government, so I did not spend time with that kind of environment. So I always want to make space for the gratitude of being around people like yourselves, leaders in sustainable development, design, construction, and some of us in policy and governance. We're excited to have you here for Rethinking Building Green. It's a workshop that is not just designed to inform. Actually, this is where we flip the script. You're going to inform us and not the other way around. The intention of this workshop is not just to inform, but to provoke bold thinking and spark some action. So success to us is you walk out of this room and you tackle this week, next week, and the weeks to follow with really tangible, actionable ideas to really change the nature, not just of your work, but of what the outcomes are, as we discussed earlier, for your clients. You are leaders in architecture, engineering, construction, development, and governance. Today, we're asking you to step into a new kind of leadership. I don't think leadership is something we talk about often enough in our industry, but we are leaders because as innovators and designers and thinkers, to get clients to build out, like the example of the building we just saw, you have to demonstrate leadership. So I thank you for your leadership. We want to provoke a leadership that reimagines the built environment as a driver of transformation. I was just saying earlier, my educational background is in architecture and design. I'm not an architect. I don't practice architecture, but I did study it. The reason I studied architecture is because I truly believe that the built environment informs and shapes the way we live and breathe every single day. And so I don't think there's a more important field to be a part of. Now I'm biased, and I'm in a room full of biased people, so I can say that. This session today is not about tweaks or just technological improvements. Today we are rethinking fundamentally how we approach sustainability, human well-being, and resilience in the spaces that we create. Inside, outside, big, small, expensive, inexpensive, all of those things. Our goal today is not to improve, it's to transform. So keep that in your head as we're working through this exercise, right? We're not looking for, just these sort of baby step improvements. No. Today, in this room, we are talking about transformation. We're here to ask this question, and I'm going to ask it again at the end. What's the boldest, most actionable shift you can lead from where you stand? Okay? Yes, today you're going to leave with some ideas, but more importantly, you're going to leave with a commitment and a direction to create transformation. So as Jonathan mentioned, I'm going to go through the logistics of the workshop, and then we're going to give you some prompts, some sort of provocative discussion points, and then we're going to ask you to do some work. This is a fast-paced interactive session, and here's how it's going to work. So we're going to kick off with the 4 quick, what I call provocations. I like that word. I like the idea of provoking something really exciting, right? So we're going to start off with 4 quick provocations, 1 for each of the workshop's core themes. You'll notice that there are 4 flip charts stationed around the room. We will let you all pick which station you would like to engage with. If some of you want to hop around and engage with all of them, power to you, y'all. After each theme that I'm going to present here, I'm going to ask you guys to take a moment. There are sticky notes and markers on your table. So I'm going to ask you to take a moment after each theme and write down. Everybody listening? Okay, just checking. Write down one insight or challenge on that sticky note in that category. We're then going to take those sticky notes when we're done with the provocation, and we're going to stick them up on the charts, and that's where you're going to start your conversation. Once we're through the provocations, we'll break you into small groups, each one of you focused on a single theme, and together in your groups, you're going to craft a big shift, so one big shift, whether it's in the market, in your process, a big shift, and a single action step, something that is specific and doable, okay? You're going to write that. That's what you guys are going to write on these charts here. You're going to have 30 minutes to do that, and then each group is just going to have a couple of minutes to share out very briefly. So everybody get ready in your groups. You're going to have to pick a scribe and a speaker, okay? And don't worry, we've assigned facilitators from the USGBC team to help you walk through this, although I don't think that's going to be necessary with this crew. I really think y'all are going to be pretty good. But report out one bold opportunity and one actionable strategy. We'll end by sharing ideas amongst ourselves, making personal commitments, and leaving with some real momentum. So, before I jump into the provocations, I want you to be thinking about one more thing aside from these 4 groupings. For you personally, I want you to think about a personal commitment. Starting Monday, this is your sentence. Starting Monday, I will. What are you going to do on Monday, right? Today's Tuesday, so you got a little over a week, or a little under a week to figure that out. But we want you to write it down today. The second thing you're going to write down is the radical idea that I'll explore is whatever. That, for me, I think, especially in government, I always wanted to talk about the radical ideas that I knew was going to make everyone in the room roll their eyes and make my CFO crawl under the table. Like, I knew that if he, shuddered, yes, that was it, and I got it. So that's what I want you guys to think of. Don't be afraid today, right? In the boardrooms and the client meetings that you might be in, maybe you're holding back a little bit. Not today. Really be radical today. So I want to introduce you to the amazing minds that are going to guide us through this exercise. And I'm going to ask you guys to stand as I introduce you. First, we have Tricia Lowe, President of Sustainable Concepts and Chair of USGBC Texas, and whom you have seen a number of times today. Tricia, wave at everybody back there. Tricia's going to help guide us through this, this exercise. Second, rock star Natalie Terrell, National Director of Sustainability for the Beck Group, and also a board member of USGBC Texas. Thank you, Natalie. And also a lead fellow. Hey, everybody clap for Natalie right now. Come on. Love it. Love it. Also, we have Carol Cabanis, owner of Greenhawk Business Services, and I'm going to say, superhero of the USGBC Texas Finance Committee. Carol, wave at everybody over there. Let me tell you, Carol's the one that's like, all right, crazy, this is how you make the radical idea work, right? Right, Carol? Yeah. She told me this morning that her favorite thing when she's most happy is when she's project managing, and that one of her favorite projects was one that was really a hot mess, and she made it amazing. And I believe you. I think that's amazing. So thank you, Carol. So also we have Jonathan Kraatz, our Executive Director and Fearless Leader of USGBC Texas. He will be around to help as well. All right, guys. Any questions before I jump into the actual provocative provocations? No? We're all good? Provocative provocations, is that redundant? Sure. All right. And I love that I'm not in government anymore because I can say the word provocative and nobody gets upset. This is so cool. Okay, Rethinking Building Green. Our vision today is to catalyze a transformation of the built environment in Texas through decarbonization, human-centered design, ecological restoration, and a redefined business case for sustainability. Our workshop will provoke, there's that word again, innovative thinking and produce actionable strategies for professionals across design, engineering, construction, development, and governance. I should have added finance to that. So these 4 areas were not plucked out of thin air. I think you've heard these themes touched on from all of our presenters all day long. We feel like at USGBC that these 4 areas are really the space where we have the potential to create the transformation that we've been talking about, the radical ideas, right? These 4 categories are also extraordinarily reinforced by the release of LEED version 5, which just occurred. So here's the provocations. Are you guys ready? I need to see people grabbing some sticky notes. It's time to grab the sticky notes. I should have been a school teacher at some point. No? Jonathan, don't shake your head. I would be good for children. And he's scared. Okay. Maybe I should have been a comedian. I don't know. We'll see. All right, does everybody have sticky notes? Okay. So decarbonization is our first theme. We all know that efficiency is not enough. We've talked about this over and over again today. LEED version 5 challenges us to go further, designing buildings that truly move us towards zero carbon futures. And I'm going to challenge us even more than that, not just designing buildings, designing communities, entire cities and regions that truly move us towards a zero carbon future. This category addresses operational emissions, which you can see here on the slide, embodied carbon, and transportation systems. All right, so we're not just talking about the building itself, building proper. We're talking about entire environments and how we can really transform towards that zero carbon future. It's a full spectrum strategy for ultra low carbon performance. And the prompt here is this. And I can put some of this, well, no, the question's not there, but the prompt is this. What would it take to make zero carbon a default expectation in your work? Okay. Jonathan, you can write that down? Because that's it. That's my guy right there. All right. Provocation number 1 in the bag. Are you writing some stuff down, guys? Are you thinking about what we talked about a moment ago? Do we need a reminder what to do? Or are we all doing good? Questions? Just want to make sure. Okay. All right, we're going to keep going then. All right. Human impact, or what we call quality of life. We're not just building structures here. We're not just designing spaces. We are shaping experiences, the human experience. And some of us might argue animal experience as well if we're talking about ecosystems, but I'll get to conservation restoration in a minute. LEED v5 integrates human health, equity, and resilience into how buildings function and feel. And can I just say equity and resilience and sustainability one more time out loud, because I don't normally get to do that. People get upset when those words are not allowed. They are allowed here, right? Human health, equity, and resilience into how buildings and environments function and feel. If our buildings aren't serving people, all people, someone brought up accessibility earlier, and I don't see her in the room anymore, but what I will tell you is this: if you are not designing for all, then you shouldn't bother. I mean, that's me being aggressive about it, right? Design for all. And if you design for all, you're really designing better in general. I think I heard the comment this morning from this gentleman here. You said, we don't build schools, we enable education. Did I get that right? That's what we're talking about here with quality of life and human impact. So the prompt is this: who is most impacted by your design decisions, and are they centered in your process? Okay? The people. Are those people centered in your design process? Do they drive your design decisions? And I'll add a little caveat to that. When you're talking at the community or the city scale, I think we are talking about entire neighborhoods and vulnerable populations, and how the design decisions you make are not just about the environment, but those human beings and their quality of life. All right. Any questions about provocation number 2? Good to go? Jonathan, you good? Yep. All right. Number 3, ecological restoration. We can't just do less harm. Right? Let me say that one more time. We cannot just do less harm. How about let's not harm? We must do active good. So it's not enough to just, like I said, do less harm or to not harm. We have to actively push forward and do good. LEAD v5 really promotes habitat restoration, rainwater regeneration, zero waste operations, and biodiversity planning. It's about seeing the building site as part of a living system. And I take that further in terms of cities being a part of a broader living system, that it's interconnected across the entire planet, and then we live and breathe together. Here's the prompt. You ready? What would it look like to give more back to nature than we take away from her? What would it look like to give more back to nature than we take away from her? All right, y'all still using them sticky notes? All right. Here we go, prompt number 4, final prompt, and then we're going to break out. The business case. We've heard a lot about ROI. We heard, in the panel this morning that I was so privileged to be able to moderate, we talked about value over cost, right? This seems to be this bottom line issue that we keep running into. We did run a survey, and I have the results, and I'll probably share them a little bit as you guys have your dialogues around the room. But what I will say is when we started to ask questions about barriers, whether it was a barrier to decarbonization or a barrier to conservation restoration, barrier to human health and just better, healthier buildings, we said, what's your number one barrier? Overwhelmingly, it was cost. And that's kind of sad, right? It means we need to tell a different story and we need to talk to our clients a little differently about value. But the business case is where that kind of lives. Sustainability is not a side benefit. It's not an add-on. It's not a barnacle. It is central to real performance. Whether we're talking about health or energy or natural resources like water. I'm from El Paso, Texas, y'all. I get worried about enough water. LEAD v5 connects directly to global ESG frameworks, giving us credible data. I think I heard data mentioned 100 different times today, right? I think it was when Chris Pike was speaking earlier this morning, and he was talking about how we have more data than we've ever had, and then we're able to make that case. LEAD v5 also really gives you long-term value. It addresses risk resilience and creates investor alignment. Investor alignment a lot, I think, and we heard, again, going back to Chris's commentary this morning, really knowing what you're talking about, sharing this sort of common lexicon, this common vocabulary. We all understand what we're after and we're using the same words to get at it. I think that kind of alignment, not just in vocabulary, but ultimately with your goals, is what the LEAD rating system really does have to offer as a benefit. And this is something that helps you make the business case. And so here's the prompt for business. Are you measuring what truly matters for long-term impact? Remember the cost versus value conversation? We said this is really not about first cost. It's about longevity. All right, and now I am going to mostly be quiet. I want to hand it over to you all. I want to invite you to join one of the 4 sort of breakout areas. This is kind of loosey-goosey, right, where you can sit wherever you want, grab a chair, sit on the floor if you want to. I mean, I took off my high heels. You're good to go. We're all among friends. We're going to move now from this inspiration to action. I'm going to leave you with these words. You are the change makers. This room represents hundreds of buildings, thousands of decisions, and millions of square feet of possibility. Let's rethink what building green means, and let's reshape the future of Texas, y'all. Time to break out. All right, everybody, if we can get your attention over here on Natalie and Jonathan, and we want to understand in the conversation about decarbonization, who's your reporter? All right, there you go. All right, what is your big shift and your action step? Go.
Big shift. Policy and education. So being able to advocate for what you want, but also be able to educate other folks that might not be as familiar with some of these impacts. The one major kind of impact step is really for us to be able to engage and have dialogue with folks who might have differing views, and being able to have conversations and get them to the point where, maybe they might shift their views in how they view carbon or metric ton of CO2, for example.
Love that. That was perfect, guys. These guys just set the standard. They set the bar really, really high. Thank you so much, Riley. That was fantastic. Policy and education. I also heard something that you can do, walk out of this room and talk to somebody. Talk to somebody about what this means. Talk to somebody about why it's important. And, if I do say so myself, we all have, elected officials that are accountable to us. So talk to your elected officials about why this is important and why they should be talking about it, even when it's rough to do so. Thank you, guys. Good job, decarb. All right, now we got quality of life and human impact. Jonathan, Tricia, who's the reporter over there? All right, City of Dallas, represent.
So who is most impacted by our design decisions, and who are central to those decisions? So our big shift, we're talking about just the individuals that utilize the facility on a daily basis, whether they live, work, play in these facilities, are the ones that are most impacted. So getting them involved in the conversation, getting input, community input at that point, at that time, early on, as they're affected by their use, and then action moving forward, as well as education, engaging with more and more people, getting all the stakeholders involved. Again, the community, again, the potential residents, contractors, builders, designers, getting everyone together early on to understand what it truly means for energy efficiency, for carbon, for clean, efficient buildings. So everyone has a level of education of what they're truly going to benefit from by going that direction.
Woo, my new favorite group. Oh my goodness. These guys set the bar, and then you just took it up higher. What I heard also, and I think is very interesting, really understanding what does quality of life mean for the communities that you're serving, and what are they asking for, and how do you deliver that based on all of these technologies and strategies and expertise that we have to offer. I will tell you this, and I shared this with this group, when in our survey, we talked about, the question was more or less, how important is community feedback, community engagement during the design process? How influential is it in your decision making is what we asked. And I was really disheartened because the number one answer was, it's not really a driver of decision making because it gets trumped out by, no pun intended. Sorry.
That's the first time today.
It's okay. It wasn't followed by an expletive, so. I love this not being in government thing. Anyways, I have digressed completely. All right. The point was, is it a driving factor in your design decisions? And the answer was no, because it gets overcome by technical and financial factors, right? So if we don't know how, or we don't have the technology and we can't afford it, I'm so sorry, community, that you'd like clean air, right? So thank you guys so much. Really knocked it out of the park. All right, conservation restoration. Where are you guys at? The bar is high.
Okay, so right over here, what would it look like to give more back to nature than we take? So we came to the conclusion that instead of aiming for bare minimums in terms of negative impact, that we aim for buildings to actually have a net positive impact on the land around them in major categories like water, urban heat, power, plants, and wildlife. The action steps around that are a combination of minimums in terms of standards, increasing those, and positive reinforcement. So this looks like credits from a municipality, the state, for the amount of water that actually gets redirected back into the water cycle, for the amount of urban heat that is offset by this specific building.
Man, you guys are just like taking the curve like this, right? We started high and we're going higher. I love it. I do want to share with the whole group what I shared with y'all. The question on the survey was quality of life, right? So it was really about what this group is talking about, but it was relevant because it was, in essence, paraphrasing, what is the design element that you can use that most impacts quality of life in a project? The number one answer was green space. And so I thought that was really interesting to see the tie between what we're talking about here and what we're trying to achieve over here. So really, really cool. All right, business case, take it home, my friends.
So the way that we kind of decided to approach Are You Measuring What Truly Matters for Long-Term Value was a shift towards a systemic approach, acknowledging redundancy, acknowledging each of those dimensions that you don't normally think of, and acknowledge that complexity. So the first way we were kind of thinking about how we would approach it is first doing some systems mapping, looking at all those different dimensions and their relationships between environmental, social, economic, and understanding the most crucial relationships for leverage points that you can access and measure within metrics to understand how you are operating in the long term, and defining the different thresholds of success and failure, so that you can adaptively manage throughout time to make it successful and increase value.
I love that. What's one action step we could all take to support that?
Start systems mapping.
Start SIPs. I love it. I love it. And you know what's really awesome about what she's talking about is we've seen the theme common all day long, is that this is not a single factor, arithmetic. This is calculus, y'all. I did not do well in calculus. Although I got a C in public speaking in college. I just want y'all to know that, so go figure. All right, guys, that one knocked it out of the park. Yes, sir.
Make a comment
You may make all the comments you like. Absolutely.
on quality of life. Quality of life has two very close siblings.
Okay.
Number one, where is the quality of life? In the natural environment, in the built environment, or in the virtual environment? Today, we don't like when our phones don't work. So we have those three, and where do they intersect? In the social environment. So the first part, as a complement to quality of life, is quality of place. And then when you have quality of life in a place, what verb do you do? In nature, you hike, you camp. Everything is verbs. You know I'm obsessed with verbs.
Yes.
So the third one is quality of human endeavor. So when you capture that in one single phrase, you're talking that our role in what we're trying to do here has to be aimed at quality of life for people, fauna, and flora, to include everybody. Quality of place where people, flora, and fauna are, and quality of what people do in a place in the whole range of human endeavors. That's just a little supplement.
I love
would
it.
add.
Quality of life, quality of place, quality of endeavor.
Human endeavor.
I think that is a human endeavor. That is a beautiful place, I think, for us to close this component out. I said at the beginning of this that I was so grateful, and I felt really privileged to be here today, but y'all just really made that grace just hit home. I'm so excited. I feel like I can take this back to my community. I hope that you can take it back to yours, but I'm going to challenge you one more time. And Jonathan's like, girl, come on. It's almost 4:30. I can feel him in my periphery. All right. Whether it's in your notebook or it's on a sticky note, maybe it's just in your head, I want to bring you back to what I asked you early before we started the breakout. You all need to do a personal commitment. If each one of us in this room does a personal commitment and we really follow through on it, and then we share that, and maybe we challenge our colleagues at work, maybe we challenge our families. I can mandate my children, that can happen. I can volunteer them to do these things. If you're a boss, you can volunteer staff to do stuff. It's cool. Starting Monday, so you got a little bit of time. Starting Monday, I will what? What are you going to do next Monday that's going to be different? The radical idea I'm going to explore is what? Now, you don't have to share that with anybody. You can keep that close to your heart, but do it. Because we get together every year. How long have we been doing EarthX? 11 years?
This is the 11th year.
11 years. We can really make a difference, guys. One action at a time, one human at a time, and make it spread. So with that, I call you to continue these conversations beyond today. USGBC Texas is an amazing platform through which to have those conversations, to share your ideas, to deploy your ideas. If you are not a member, I will find you. No, I'm kidding. Sort of. If you're not a member, please become a member of USGBC Texas, because it is USGBC Texas that has made today possible, Rethinking Building Green. And we're going to continue that conversation. Here's another challenge question. What if Texas becomes the global proving ground for climate positive design? I think that would make the rest of the world, swing their head like whiplash that Texas was the one to do it, right? But we can, we really can. We have the innovation, we have the momentum, we have the capital, frankly, to be able to do it. So with that, I'll just say thank you so much. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jonathan, and thank you for allowing me to monopolize the room for an hour.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to get to go too far. So really, thank you. This is really the first kind of these steps we're going to be taking in figuring out how, as I said, our theme today is Rethinking Building Green. And it's been a kind of based on a couple things. One, a book I picked up and started reading about 6 months ago called Think Again by Adam Grant, kind of looking at your thought process and things like that too, but looking at, as been mentioned, LEED version 5 was just approved, it will launch soon. LEED version 5 really rethinks the building rating system and kind of changes the credit categories into some you've heard a lot about today: decarbonization, human experience, and environmental restoration. So those are ways that USGBC at the national level has been rethinking how we build green. And those are some pieces that we will continue to work on throughout the rest of this year as a kickoff into that, but then moving forward and going into the future, into a better future. So we were supposed to have a conversation with Chris and myself, but Chris ended up having to fly back to DC early. So you're stuck with me and Nicole for a few minutes, reflecting kind of on today, but then we're also asking we'll be asking a couple questions of you. So Natalie's got a microphone, we'll be roving around. So with that, I guess I'll start, Nicole, just to kind of say, what's really stuck out to you about today?
I think what stuck out to me today is the notion of possibility and opportunity with the phenomenal minds that are in this room and how diverse those minds are. I think that one of the reasons I've always loved working in this space, whether it was when I was studying architecture or when I was doing lead consulting or when I was doing, governance and policy, is that we are not one type of human or professional in this room. If you go to other types of conferences, it's like the same thing across the board. We are diverse, and in that diversity, there is power. And in that power, we have the opportunity to really create transformation. And that's our mission at USGBC Texas, is to really transform the built environment, not, poke at it with, percentage points of efficiency, right? We're going to change things, and that's what struck me.
We talked a lot today, really kind of digging in, especially early on with Chris's exuberance this morning, and kind of looking at the data, looking at the trends and that sort of thing too. I know Chris mentioned kind of one of the biggest threats to actual sustainability is light green projects that are green for a time but then fade. What are some of the things that people have shared that kind of resonated with you about kind of how do we get around that or get past that?
Yeah, I think what I heard, no matter what category we were talking about, is really understanding what you're doing. What are these tools that we have in front of us to achieve? We talked about decarbonization. Well, in this room, I can say decarbonization, and most of us know what that is. But I bet you, if I had to define it, it would be different from how Natalie would define it or how Tricia would define it. So really, sort of putting your arms around that vocabulary, I think, is really, really important. But also, creating the platform for that to happen. I think, when we start to talk about pale green, I'm going to steal that. I'd never heard that before. Pale green buildings being riskier than the non-sustainable building, right? And what that reminds me of is kind of a philosophy that I use in life. It's 4:30 in the afternoon. I get to be sort of ethereal, no? Yeah? Okay. So a philosophy in life for me is, why would you just dip your toes in the pool? Do it or don't. And so I feel like that about sustainability. And when I'm in this room, and what my takeaway to your point is, do it or don't. If you're really going to do it, understand it, push it, advocate for it, achieve it, measure its outcome, and then do it again.
So for any of you guys, so what is something that kind of stood out to you? I might as well make Natalie start since you've got the microphone.
Yeah. Jeez. Anybody want this microphone right now? I'll pass it on. I think the thing that stands out to me is the thing that always gets me at conferences. It's not often that I'm in the room with people who are like-minded with similar goals. And, you got to love what you do when you're in sustainability, because it's not always great. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's just dang hard. And sometimes you go home and you're just like, God, why don't they get it? And I just love being in a room full of people who understand it and implement it and think about it in their own ways, but we're all working toward a common goal. And so I always leave these things exhausted, but also invigorated. And seeing the thoughts and people building on ideas and sharing and saying yes and is what always gets me, is the yes and. Okay, who else? Who wants to share a thought, a takeaway?
Yeah, this was very informative. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me as well is just there's a clear gap between the education from what needs to be done in terms of current technologies, and then we talk about emerging technologies, even from practitioners in the room. We're always looking for the upgrade of the latest version, the latest thing that we can apply into our existing practice, but that's going to take time and education and understanding, and that's one of the biggest gaps. And then also how we communicate it with others, understanding where they're coming from, meeting them where they are, taking complex information, technical information to a new, unexposed audience is also something that's a big challenge and another gap. So we're in the middle of moving forward, but also bringing everyone else with us along.
If you guys don't know, he's with the city of Dallas.
Yes.
Who else? I'm short, so it's hard to see past that column.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for putting on such a great event today. It was very informative. I come from California. I'm part of the USGBC chapter over there. Maybe you know Ben Stapleton.
Ben's a good friend.
He's a great guy. Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me is to see, I knew the USGBC network was, well, it's across our whole country and the world, really. Well, maybe LEED certifications, but USGBC within the US. But I'm a young professional in the field, so I've only worked in California. And it's exciting to see how prolific the Texas chapter is. And it's cool to see that we have counterparts here, in the Midwest and the South. Maybe I'm not too great with geography coming from California. But I guess where I'm going with that is that it's inspiring to see how vast this network is and how many people really care about the built environment across the country.
I want to add a little bit to that because I want to share a little bit of story with you guys. So, when I started out in my career, I was doing interior design. I was working with architects. We were pushing out mostly public buildings. So I was working in the design world. And I can't even remember exactly how I stumbled upon USGBC, but I ended up in San Antonio at a conference. And this guy was there. And that's when we met. When we were youngins.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute. But I was a young professional just like yourself, right? And what I started doing is I started volunteering with USGBC. And my mother would always be like, I'm sorry, do you recognize how much architecture school costs? and you're volunteering. Like, can you get paid? Is that, my mother.
Your mother's also your accountant.
Yeah. Yeah, so she was like, can you get paid sometimes? And I was like, yeah, I will. It's going to pay off. I was right and she was wrong, and I'll tell you why. Because I then started my own company when I was 27 years old. It was called Uncommon, and we did a lot of building consulting. Uncommon thrived in part because I had built a network through USGBC. USGBC gave me the platform to interact with professionals like yourself. Then fast forward, I went into government and then further used USGBC as a platform. If you haven't heard about Lead for Cities, Dallas, I'm talking to you, then we need to be talking about it, right? Lead for Cities is about benchmarking. Lead for Cities is about shifting things at a regional level, right? So kept using USGBC as a resource in my role in government. So now, and I'm going to reveal my age. I'm 47 this year. So 20 years later, I'm still sitting on a stage with this guy. We're very good friends, and my children call him Uncle Jonathan. But I am here today because this chapter gave me that opportunity. And so what you said is so meaningful, whether it's California or Texas or wherever the heck it is. USGBC is a very good place to be.
So one of the things that we mentioned, this is the 11th year we've done EarthX. Yeah. I have actually been to all of them. Even the first year when it was on Flora Street in downtown Dallas, when it was that, and then that at that time known as Earth Day Dallas, we were in tents on Flora Street. It rained. There were 80,000 school kids coming through asking about what do you do and what are you giving away. But it was interesting to just kind of see how what people wouldn't expect to come into Dallas to be something to start here, to the years we went to the state fairgrounds. And just before COVID, we had over 300,000 people come through that 3 days at the state fairgrounds. And it's a great week. At the time, before it was 3 days, now it's 5 days. It was one of the most, it's always been one of the most enjoyable and exhausting weeks of the year for us. But I think that is, something that comes out of this is, there's always something that reminds you there is another way to think about things. So Dr. Venegas, with your triple ROIs, looking at not just return on investment, but return on impact and return on influence. How do we get that into the measurement of what we're doing for projects and for programs and for policy? The legislature is in session right now. I spend a lot of time talking with our partners down in Austin and our consultants down in Austin, visiting people down there in the Pink Building to try to come up with ways that we can benefit all of Texas, and also try to prevent ways that there's some negative things that are out there we're trying to prevent from happening. But there's always a greater community. This EarthX community, our USGBC Texas, or just USGBC community, not just in Texas, but outside of Texas, is always an inspiration to me. As I said earlier, one of my favorite parts of my job is being able to recognize those projects that are accomplishing these goals. I was able to go do a plaque presentation for Revy for Colleyville Vision Associates. We'll be doing a tour there. We'll be doing a tour at Southstone Yards soon. In 2 weeks, I get to present a Lead for Cities Gold recognition to the city of Capel. So there's all these pieces that are going on that aren't necessarily related, but they're all feeding into those same goals. And being able to represent that and represent you, being in this job for as long as I have, if it were not for the people, I would have been gone a long time ago into other things. So any other reflections, any other closing thoughts that anybody has?
I think I'd like to, I see a number of us in here. If you are a USGBC Texas board member, please stand up.
Or Region Council.
Or Region Council, yes, I'm sorry. I should have added the Region Council to that. All right, guys. When I ask this question next year, I want to see y'all stand up. right? So, we talked about having one action. I want to thank each one of you and you guys can sit down if you like, it's cool. You can continue standing if you like. But I wanted to recognize them because, volunteering your time is really how you can make change. And so if I was to share one action that everyone can take, it is to volunteer. It's to stand up with our colleagues, join your region council, join a committee, help volunteer at an event. I get it. We're all busy. It's like, I don't have time for this. I can't do this. What I will tell you is it's addictive. You're going to volunteer for an event. We are fabulous people, and you're going to want to volunteer more and more. And before you know it, you're going to be on the state board. And then we're going to make you chair, and it's going to be a whole thing. Right, Tricia? But I invite you all, please join the dialogue. And we're going to use the dialogue we got today to frame our activities going forward. You want to talk a little bit about 10 years?
I was actually going to go there, yes. So one of the things that at EarthX next year, this is our plan. It has not been approved by EarthX yet, but we're going to propose that. On April 22nd of 2026, the Texas chapter of USGBC, which formed from 4 legacy chapters merging, we officially merged on April 22nd of 2016. And I found out literally while we were hosting this conference, or our EarthX conference, at the state fairgrounds. And so next year, we want to be able to celebrate that 10 years of statewide action. So 10 months out from that, we're going to be asking our members to once a month do a action, have an action. So 10 actions over 10 months across the state of Texas.
It's a lot of action.
That is a lot of action. So look for more information on what those are. There will be suggested actions per month, but we're not holding you to only do that. It could be picking up trash. It could be going to a school board meeting. It could be writing to your legislators. It could be doing your own energy audit of your house, especially if you have teenagers. You have to get into Vinny's room.
No one does that. No one gets into Vinny's room. That's not safe.
But
that's a lot of action.
But those are a lot of things that and it's small actions are what the initial things to get things rolling.
Yeah.
And look for more ways that you can do. As Nicole also challenged you on Monday, you will.
What you gonna do Monday? I think right there.
So with that, I do want to thank you all. Again, thank our sponsors today, Grundfos, AutoCase, Beck, Texas Pace Authority, that without your support, these events are not possible for us to do that. We have other events coming up across the state. I did mention the tour here in Dallas. There's a number of tours that are scheduled. Another one in Austin, looking at, it's on the 20th of May, looking at, is it the Waterloo Park and the watershed piece? Lisa can, the confluence of Waterloo Creek in Austin. We're also planning another half-day session looking at project finance and the economics of green building in Houston. That will be on August the 21st. And that will also include a tour of the LEED Platinum 1550 on the Green, which is the Bjorn Ingalls Group project in downtown Houston. On September the 16th, we'll be back in Austin doing another joint event with USGBC National looking at decarbonization. And then we'll do another one with them in Dallas in early December, really digging into LEED version 5.
Jonathan forgot August.
August the 8th.
Yes. Go ahead. Oh, you want me to? August the 8th is our best event of the year. And it's called Women in Green. So everybody wear green. We are going to be in Austin, and I have the absolute privilege of interviewing Ms. Gail Vittori, who is just a trailblazer in green building design. The event itself will be held in Austin. I will be having a conversation with Gail, but we basically simulcast this event across the entire state of Texas, in all the big cities in Texas, in all of our regions. And so there's an opportunity to participate no matter where you are. And it's a celebration, yes, of women in green, but really of the transformation that we're trying to push forward. And so I invite you to join us no matter where in Texas you are on August 8th.
And it's definitely not just for women.
I was going to say, and not women only. Last year we had one guy, two guys, in
Was
Dallas.
In Dallas, it was me and one other.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
But we
boys
had
come
like a
too.
crowd of like 50 or 60. So come on, guys, come support Women in Green.
Absolutely, you're right. It's about the trail that has been paved by women in the industry, but we can't do it without the support of our male colleagues and partners. And so we really hope that you all will join us there to celebrate. It's the best.
So if you have any questions about USGBC, the people who were on our leadership groups stood up a minute ago. If you have questions, please reach out to us. Also, I do want to recognize, thank you, Dina Haynes, for joining us from USGBC National. She flew down from Chicago, and she's got a lot of great information about kind of other things that are going on at the national level. So please stick around and talk about that. We do have happy hour here with with EarthX down in the exhibit space down at the far side of the atrium. So that starts in about 10 minutes or so. So thank you all for a very long day, a very productive day, I think, and for sticking with us and sharing your opinions and thoughts, especially as we dig into these areas and how do we take these and move them forward in what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Give yourself a round of applause, guys.